Howdy, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Aliens and Cowboys Podcast. I'm Joe. With me, as always, are Garrett and Nate.
Hello.
Hey, guys.
Tonight, we're really going to launch right in here very shortly to our movie review of Casino Royale. But before we do, as always, we do like to try and touch upon some listener feedback. Garrett, I think you do have a couple points to bring up.
Yeah, some of the feedback I got from some listeners. One was for Nate's John Doe, which I think was your final favorite character, if I remember. The idea that John Doe they thought was an excellent choice. Definitely one of those kind of villains that people forget about. A criminal mastermind in his own way. You know, not really maybe a criminal, but definitely one of the probably top two serial killers.
He's definitely a criminal.
No, I'm sorry. I meant mastermind.
Mastermind.
Yeah, not a mastermind. Definitely a criminal. No,
Definitely a criminal.
Yeah, no redeeming quality about
No.
that. Right. One listener had something he took against mine. I had Vincent from Collateral as an honorable mention.
That's right.
He thought Vincent should have actually been a great villain and should have been on the Mount Rushmore of villains, because this is a villain that, if you think about the movie, so if you haven't seen the movie, you're not going to follow this, but when Vincent gets in the cab, Jamie Foxx's life is kind of just floundering, right? He has the idea of this limo service. He wants to go to this beach. He keeps looking at the photo of the postcard. He has these grand plans and never really puts them into work. He's kind of a schluff. He kind of gets pushed around by his boss at the cab service company. And really, his relationship he develops with Vincent along this route to killing all these people kind of forces him to be that go-getter. That if it wasn't for Vincent, he would have probably not ever been able to, save the day, rescue Jada Pinkett, or probably go on to have this limo service, right? Like, it was this relationship he built with Tom Cruise's character Vincent, that Vincent really kind of says, you're just making excuses. Like, as kind of a bad guy as he is, kind of like a no-nonsense, like, that's just an excuse. If I want to get something done, I'll just go kill somebody, right? And that's what he does, right? That's my job, that's what I do. You're wasting time. And I think that was a pretty indicative thing as far as a villain that really has such an impact on the protagonist in the story, right? And he just thought that was a really good villain.
Yeah.
So,
good place to bring up.
Yeah, other than that, there wasn't much more feedback. Some people were shocked we didn't have Lord Voldemort, since I'm a big Harry Potter fan.
You're a big Harry Potter fan.
I agree, but I don't root for him. And so my group was based on characters I root for at the detriment of the hero.
Right.
I'm a Harry Potter guy. Harry Potter's my guy. I'm not going to root against Harry Potter.
Fair enough.
I couldn't pick Voldemort, although Ralph Fiennes is great as that villain. So, yeah. Other than that, people thought it was a good episode. People like it. I guess when we break down some of those lists, they kind of like the format of that.
Very cool.
Sometimes we'll do more of those in the future. In the meantime, let's jump in.
Yeah.
Let's jump into 007 here.
I totally agree. We're going to bypass pop culture news tonight. We'll maybe touch on that again in our next episode. But let's dive right in. Just in terms of a brief synopsis, once again, what we're covering here is a movie review of Casino Royale, which is, of course, a James Bond movie starring Daniel Craig, as well as Ava Green as Vesper Lynt, and Mads Mikkelsen plays the primary villain as Le Chiffre that you see throughout most of the movie. Really what this is in a lot of ways, though, which I really love about it, it's kind of an origin story for James Bond. Right at the beginning, he earns his 007 status, so it's him on one of his presumably first missions as a 00 agent. Really what he ends up doing is he starts by investigating a plot to blow up a plane. From there, his investigation leads him to determine that it's actually a private banker to terrorists, that's Le Chiffre, who was really kind of betting against the market to have this plane blow up, but he was using his client's money to do this, to bet against the market. So when Bond prevents the plane from blowing up, he essentially loses all of this money. So Le Chiffre is desperate. He's got to find a way to win back this money so he can pay back his clients, so he has the funds available to his clients. So he sets up this poker tournament at Casino Royale in Montenegro. Bond catches wind of this, of course. M sends him on a mission to stop Le Chiffre, to beat him in poker so that he can put a stop to Le Chiffre, but also Le Chiffre is, of course, financing terrorism as well. So Bond's goal is to immediately stop Le Chiffre, but also prevent him from reobtaining those funds to continue to finance and bank for terrorists. So it's a very important mission that he's set upon to do here.
Sounds good.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll turn over for some categories here, too.
Yeah, so let's start off. First thoughts. Nate, we'll go to you.
I remember watching this for the first time and thinking, man, there's not a whole lot of action to this movie. when you think of James Bond. And then I watched it again. There are quite a few scenes where it's just action-packed, and the pacing's done really well to keep you interested throughout. But yeah, it's not your typical 007 film where there's people shooting a machine gun every 2 seconds and lasers are flying, that sort of thing.
Okay. Joe?
Definitely. Yeah, I love this movie. We've talked a little bit about this before the podcast. One of my favorite Bond movies, if not my overall favorite in that Bond franchise. Just phenomenal job. From the very first scene where it's black and white, it's kind of got this noir style to it where he's earning his 007 status, to the opening theme song, which was performed by Chris Cornell, actually, of Audioslave and Soundgarden, of course. Just phenomenal. I really, really enjoy this movie.
I like that intro, too. With the suit of the cards, I thought that was pretty interesting how they did that.
Yeah, I like that. I like how the Ace of Spades used is, of course, the actual bullets fired from the guns and things like that. It's a cool opening sequence. It really is.
No, I agree, and I really enjoyed this film too. This is my favorite Bond. We all agreed before this that we are all Daniel Craig fans, and that he's our favorite, basically, iteration of Bond. So we're not really going to have that particular debate tonight. My first thoughts on rewatching this, and I've seen this movie a couple times, so this is not like I haven't seen it for a while. This is probably my favorite Bond as well, although Skyfall is really good. That was super good. That was a very good movie. My first thought rewatching this, though, for the podcast was this was long. This movie is like 2 hours and 34 minutes. This was way longer than I remember it being, and I saw this in theaters. Really enjoyed it in the theater, and we'll get into why I fell in love with Daniel Craig's Bond in a little bit.
Awesome.
The other thing is, this seems like 3 separate movies.
It does.
So, going to what Joe was saying, the beginning part where he's becoming 007 status, he's trying to stop a bomb going off at the airport, that's like one movie. Like, that felt like one movie that completely transitions into the poker tournament movie.
Yeah.
And the confrontation with Le Chiffre. And then it ends there with him, with Mr. White, spoiler alert, killing Le Chiffre, right? And then it goes into a relationship.
And then there's like 40 more minutes after Le Chiffre dies.
Yes, I felt like this was Return of the King.
Yeah.
There's so many
epilogues on epilogues.
Yes, there's so many endings, right? I mean, it was just really great. And then when you think it's over, he pops up at the very end again, kneecaps Mr. White, introduces himself.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really just, again, long movie. Really good, but rewatching it for a podcast is homework, kind of. just a long. Took me 2 days to watch it.
It took me 2 days as well. Yeah.
I'm gonna jump back a little bit on the intro and that first opening scene with the suits and the song playing.
Yeah.
One regrettable thing: if they just held on to this script for 3 more years, they could have played Lady Gaga's Poker Face as the intro to this song. Probably wouldn't have fit the context, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, we were almost thinking of that for Nate's entrance music when we introduced him on the podcast.
Like when you step up to the plate in baseball, that'd be my theme music.
There you go.
Yes. I have a question for you guys. So we are all the age where our first Bond was Pierce Brosnan.
That's right, yeah.
What were your guys' thoughts? Because we've all seen every Pierce Brosnan Bond, right? Okay,
yes,
starting with GoldenEye.
It's been some time since I've seen some of those, but I have seen all of them.
I do think Netflix and Hulu have a lot of the James Bond movies on there right now. So if you guys are wanting to watch some James Bond, there's a lot of them out there right now on streaming services to catch. What are your guys' thoughts of Pierce Brosnan? Because obviously Pierce Brosnan was a lot of people's, at least our generation, iteration of Bond, right? And to go on with the GoldenEye game that we talked about in the previous episode, which you can find in our archive, to me, as much as I love Craig, Pierce Brosnan has the look, though. When I see James Bond, I see that tall, dark, handsome, and Pierce Brosnan's got that look. So, and Nate's laughing. Right. So,
no, keep going. You're doing great.
What are your viewpoints on Brosnan versus Craig? We'll deep dive the character difference.
Okay.
I'm just want to talk about the actor. So first thoughts on Daniel Craig versus Pierce Brosnan taking over this mantle.
I laughed at you before, but I think you're kind of right in the sense where he is taller. Where I don't think you get that impression that Daniel Craig is really that big and intimidating of a person.
Right. And I know a lot of Bond purists out there are screaming right now that we're not talking about Sean Connery. We get it. Sean Connery is, legendary James Bond too.
Right.
But he's also not our James Bond, right? It's, let's be fair here. He might be the best James Bond, but we didn't grow up watching Goldfinger. We probably saw Goldeneye, right? And the World Is Not Enough, and Tomorrow Never Dies, and
this may ruin it for a lot of Sean Connery fans, but there were rumors that I came across that he was losing his hair at age 20, so that in every movie you see, he's actually wearing a toupee. Just throwing it out there.
Fair enough.
yeah.
Whatever that does for your
Remember that
vote.
or write that down. Let's, like I said, actor-wise, not character, because I want to touch the characters later.
That's a good distinction.
Discuss the characters later.
Yeah.
Tell me what is your guys' viewpoints on Pierce Brosnan versus Daniel Craig? Like, obviously, we aren't as big of Bond fans that we would have screamed with Daniel Craig. I do feel like we have opinions on the next Bond will be, because I think we're just older and we have stake in watching this franchise now.
Yeah.
Whereas as a child, like, again, GoldenEye was my first James Bond movie. And so I will say I like the look that Pierce Brosnan has. Although I will say it's going to sound weird, the blue eyes fierceness that Craig has, though, really good. But the tall, dark, handsome thing of Pierce Brosnan's really good. Kind of reminds me of Timothy Dalton from like License to Kill.
That's right.
Has that same kind of look to him. I don't know. Are you guys have a problem with Bond being a little shorter? Because he is. He's not as tall as Pierce Brosnan. At least they're not framing him as to be as tall as Pierce Brosnan.
I don't have a problem with that. I think a big part for me is the on-screen presence that actor has.
Okay.
So Pierce Brosnan, to both of your points you've brought up thus far, yes. In regard to a traditional, I would say probably more a direct representation of the character from the books. Yeah, the kind of look that Pierce Brosnan has better fulfills that. But I think Daniel Craig's presence on screen is so commanding that regardless if he looks like that traditional Bond figure, he makes you believe it within that first scene he's in.
Okay.
I would argue.
Okay. Nate?
I'm in agreement. I think they both do so well in the context of the scripts and kind of the environment that they're brought into for those different movies.
Now, one thing I also want to kind of point to is this is the first time you can make the argument that they rebooted the Bond franchise. Even though we had multiple iterations of Bond, this is like a true reboot, right? Because they went down a darker path. They went down a more, how should I say, brooding Bond. Probably similar to the actual Ian Fleming book character that was based off Casino Royale.
Yeah.
As far as this reboot, starting with him as 007, okay? Do you think that was the best place to start this reboot or sequel? Or sorry, not really a sequel, because it was a reboot.
Yeah.
Do you think it's the best to start him getting his 007 status, or would you have liked to seen him already established as Bond?
I think it fits just fine. I don't know how much you really need to know other than he has a license to kill at that point, and that's where the action comes to play.
Yeah, and I like that they included it. I think that they did a good job with making this somewhat of an origin, but they don't really beat you over the head with it. They set up the fact, they give a nice little almost prequel setting with that noir black and white intro, but fast forward just a little bit after those opening credits, and he's already in 007 mode. I get that he's very new to his role, but outside of that intro scene, you almost wouldn't know that it's like essentially his equivalent of first day on the job. He's ready to throw down with these guys very clearly. So I think it's cool that it still gives you a little bit of his backstory. They don't dwell too terribly much on it, though, so they can still launch into him being 007 and obviously fulfilling that role that most people think of.
I have another fun fact.
Yeah.
You can call me the research department on this episode.
R&D.
Yep.
But so the real fans who I took this from actually did kill counts based on each of the James Bonds.
Okay.
So Pierce Brosnan was in 4 movies, killed, they have a range here, of 76 to 135 people. Oh my gosh. There are only 350 people killed in all Bond's movies combined. And Pierce Brosnan killed half of them on his own. So,
Jeez,
maybe the action flick back in the 90s, early 2000s was a heavy emphasis.
That's an interesting point to bring up, though, because in my mind, the perceived lethality, let's say, of Daniel Craig far outweighs that of Pierce Brosnan. But looking at, I guess, the hard facts there, Pierce Brosnan, at least on screen, he's very lethal.
Well, I thought the whole concept of having a 00 agent is that they can slip in and slip out and like silently assassin someone, not like kill an entire army.
Right.
Sure. Okay, so let's look at it this way. Nope, let's look at it this way. So what at what point did you know Daniel Craig's Bond in this movie? Because I knew in this movie this was already the best James Bond. Did you guys feel the same way, or did it take you a couple other films with Daniel Craig?
I completely agree.
Okay.
Completely agree.
At what point did you fall in love with this James Bond?
Truly the opening scene. Like, I know I keep referencing it.
Okay,
but
the black and white?
Yes.
Okay, so my scene was where he shoots the unarmed bomb maker.
Yeah.
So, because my viewpoint of what a 00 agent is an assassin who's coming in here to slip in, slip out, kill somebody. Kind of an homage to GoldenEye, though. If you remember at the beginning of the movie where they're in the facility, he's surrounded by that army of the Russians, and he has to get out of there, so he shoots the canisters to blow it up, and he gets out and goes to the runway, right? Walks in this embassy, destroys this embassy, turns it inside out, grabs this unarmed bomb maker, and before he can get away with him, he gets surrounded by soldiers, right?
Right.
So what he does is gives up the bomb maker, shoots him, kills him, blows up the place, right? Gets away. But the idea that he shot the unarmed bomb maker, boom, that was it for me. He was James Bond. He was 007 in my opinion because of that move right there. That's how I pictured 007 was. I don't remember Pierce Brosnan ever killing somebody unarmed.
Yeah, and I guess I don't remember that specifically either. And
right.
kind of along those lines, I guess, once again, it's how lethal he's willing to be. Like, by the end of Pierce Brosnan's run, and I love the movies for their own reasons, but it almost edged into self-parody, I would say, by the end of Pierce Brosnan's run. So when Daniel Craig shows up, I mean, the opening scene's brutal. He drowns the guy in the sink.
Yep.
I mean, it's an intense sequence to watch, and it just brought back the fact that this guy is not messing around. He's not really quipping one-liners at this point. He's an assassin. He's lethal, and that's how I had envisioned Bond to be.
Yeah.
So.
No, I agree. And I think that's kind of the thing, too, is it's a lot more lethal of a character, because I was thinking that after he fights the guy at the airport, right?
Yeah.
Attaches the bomb, blows him up. His face is all cut up. When he gets on the train to meet Vespa, his face is still kind of nicked. You can see the scratches. They don't hide his blemishes, right? He gets beat up and goes on to the next thing, which will kind of draws a comparison to me to Christian Bale's Batman, and the idea that you see the bruises on his body, that you know what he's going through every night to be Batman, kind of reminds me of the way that they nick his face up when he gets into a fight, and they don't cover it up.
So, another fun fact for you. Pull this one out. James Bond has been shot at 4,662 times.
That's it?
The most drastic injury that he suffered was, I think, is it Quantum of Solace when he shot off the train?
That's Skyfall.
Yeah. Skyfall.
He almost dies.
Yes. And that was the one time.
Hold on, wait. What you're saying is
1 out of 4,622 bullets was shot by someone in his own company. And that's the most dangerous thing that's happened.
Let me get this straight. You're saying his most like concerning injury is the fact that a milliliter to the left, this heart shot didn't kill him.
Well, the fall could have killed him too, I suppose.
That's true. That's true. Okay, so let's go to this then. Casting change. Obviously, Daniel Craig, not popular when casted.
He wasn't.
Okay.
Originally.
In fact, I believe they called him, and I have a quote here, Bland, James Bland. Okay. Daniel Craig was not well known, especially in American movies.
That's true.
I believe he'd been in The Layer Cake.
Oh, that's a good
He
one,
was in
too.
Road to Perdition.
Yep.
That's where I knew him from. I didn't know him from anything else. So I don't know. We were too young to really have an opinion. We would have been like just out of high school, I think, around this time period that this movie came out. So my question to you is not so much who would you have liked to have been cast, but okay, let's just say this. Let's take this way first. Casting rumors. So people that were supposed to have been cast as James Bond. Okay. One of your favorite, Carl Urban.
Okay. Yeah.
Lord of the Rings. Let's see here. Who else did I have? Daniel Craig originally turned it down. But on the scene of Munich...
Why did he turn down that role? Did it say why?
I did not get that. But on the scene of Munich, when he was dealing with Mossad agents and Secret Service from England, kind of got that look of the killer in these guys that were training the people on the set of Munich, which if you haven't seen Munich, that's an incredible movie. Realized he wanted to take the scene, and that's where he took his character from, is these guys that he met on the set of Munich.
Okay.
Hugh Jackman also turns it down.
also turns it down.
Mm-hmm.
Really? Mm-hmm. I'd be really interested to know why they're turning it down.
Right. So Hugh Jackman turns it down. Carl Urban turns it down. He was rumored to be it because I guess there was like 200 names for Vesper. Angelina Jolie and Charlize Theron were in the running for this.
Nah.
Now, I'm a huge Angelina Jolie fan, and I would have loved to see her in a Bond movie because when I think of her in the movie Wanted, she would be a great Bond girl. I
think a lot of the things that draw people to James Bond is like the exotic locales and the amazing, beautiful women. I'm not saying that those women aren't, but to the exotic point, Eva Green has a bit of an accent in it instead of an American accent.
What about the lady in the beginning of the movie? I don't know her name. She's the one that gets tortured. She's the husband, the wife of the guy that he stabs in the basically the poker museum or whatever it is. She's, like I said, don't know her name, but she was a very attractive lady. I think she's an Italian actress that I hadn't noticed her from anything prior to that, but that was kind of an original spot. Also, the lady, don't know her name, from Da Vinci Code was also supposed to play this, but chose Da Vinci Code over this, from my understanding.
Okay.
Which was fine. Da Vinci Code was good. So let's do this. Any casting changes that you think should have happened?
At the time.
We'll get to casting later.
I was going to say, I obviously, if they go to cast someone else, but we'll touch on that later. It sounds like I honestly can't think of anyone really.
The only thing I can think of on your list of 200, when you're a casting agent trying to think of who's going to play Bond, the biggest thing that I think of is, do you choose a known name that's going to draw an audience, and you already know who they are and what they can kind of do? Or do you choose a no-name and try to bring them up to this Bond status? I think that's a huge dilemma for people trying to choose who the next Bond is.
Yeah, I agree. But those are big shoes to fill, too.
I wouldn't have changed Eva Green at all.
You think she was good?
Yep. I had a note when I was watching the movie that said, Eva Green, ooh la la.
Yeah, I think she did a great job in that role as well. I guess part of why I'm having a hard time with that is because not only is it one of my favorite Bond movies, if not my top Bond movie, it's probably one of my favorite movies of all time. It really is. So seeing, or rather picturing, I should say, anybody else taking on these roles is tough for me to do. Daniel Craig and Eva Green both are just phenomenal.
Okay, so let's talk about Vesper then. So Vesper's kind of a different Bond girl.
Yeah.
I don't call Bond girl. I know they're called Bond girls. So let's just say Bond lady. Okay? So Nate's rolling his eyes
very
at me.
PC of you or whatever.
So now this is the first time, right? So he's first time 00 status. He's in the field for the first time as a 00 agent. Well, not first time, second time he's in the field as a 00 agent. Obviously, he's a ladies' man. He's a womanizer. That's the characteristic of James Bond. Okay? She kind of has the attitude to go against him.
Yeah,
right?
Very much so.
She doesn't take his crap. She doesn't really necessarily fall for his looks. And if she does, she lets him know that, I think you're attractive. I noticed you. But whatever. Right? Kind of, I think, so when she sizes him up for this tuxedo. Right?
Yeah.
I love that intro into the tuxedo.
Yeah,
I do too.
When they have their best scene together, and one of the better scenes in the movie is the train ride where they're having dinner together, when she first sits down.
Yeah.
And they have that conversation. Do you almost like she's more his equal because he kind of clearly falls in love with her, right? And this is kind of where you can go forward with the fact that he doesn't get close to women after this because of the ending of this movie. But he falls in love with her. She's kind of his equal. Now, is that only because Moneypenny doesn't exist at this time that we know of? Because she doesn't exist till the end of the movie, right? Or is it that he just inexperienced? I mean, let's be fair. He's an inexperienced 007 movie. He makes a lot of mistakes that other Bond movies don't let him make, right? He's very vulnerable. He almost dies multiple times. He's beaten up all the time. He makes mistakes a lot. He's a very vulnerable, inexperienced 007 agent that falls in love.
And they allude to that at the end of the movie when M calls 007 and he admits that that'll never happen again. Where's my next job?
That's the second time I fell in love with him. Right. That two parts. The part where he shoots the unarmed bomb-maker, the part where he throws the phone, he says, I'm coming back. What's the job? Throws the phone in the canal and keeps going. Right?
And I think, the character of Vesper Lynd, I think, is one of the strongest, if not the strongest, also brought to screen for a Bond movie. And I think it's really important that they did this because just as you've both mentioned, they're showing how vulnerable he can be. Part of it, yeah, sure, is inexperience, but I think what they gloss over so much of the time in a lot of the other adaptations out there and the different actors that portray these roles is Bond is a jerk. He's not really a guy you'd probably want to hang out with. We all think he's cool, he's suave, but when you really drill down to it, he's kind of a jerk. And this movie calls him out on that a lot of the times, using Vesper Lynd to do that. She is his equal. She calls him out on the fact when he's being a jerk a lot of the time. And you can see how that makes him stumble on occasion because he's so used to, I think, getting what he wants. And so it's a very important character for Vesper to be able to stand up to him for that. I mean, I can't think of many other Bond movies where there's even veiled criticisms of his behavior, and this one really brings them to the forefront, which is, I think, really important. So I love that character of Vesper.
Well, one thing I think this movie does, too, is makes not just Vesper a strong female lead. Clearly there is a timeline shift, that the fact that Judi Dench is here.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so Judi Dench is not in GoldenEye. I believe she comes in the movie after GoldenEye.
Yeah.
Or does she come in GoldenEye?
I'd have to look it up.
Yeah, that's true. But
yeah,
she might come in. No, I don't think she comes in on GoldenEye. I think she comes in on the next one. Joe's going to look that up real quick.
Yeah, we'll revisit that in a second.
But the fact that she is a strong female character in this film, and really is up and through Skyfall, right, where unfortunately she passes away,
right?
Or gets killed. Not
Spoiler alert.
But do we have a problem with the fact that they're rebooting this, but they're bringing her into this as M? Like, as a timeline shift, do we have a problem with her?
I don't have any problem. I mean, Judi Dench is international treasure, so...
Great, she's great.
So I think that it's totally awesome that they brought M back. And you are correct, actually. It wasn't GoldenEye, by the way. I just confirmed that. So she wasn't GoldenEye.
She was?
Go back and rewatch that.
Okay,
yeah,
so then she gets introduced in GoldenEye as M.
As M, yeah. But yeah, I think she does a great job.
Oh, she has this great scene after he shoots the unarmed bomb maker. She goes, "I miss the Cold War." He goes, "If people would have done that they would have just had the self-right to just defect."
Yes,
it's just like go be a Russian, right? I mean, I thought that was great. And their chemistry, I think, is better than chemistry that she had with Pierce Brosnan.
I agree.
When he's sitting in her house playing cards by himself, and she's like, "How the hell did you find out where I live?" You know, he's like, "Oh, I thought M was just a moniker they gave you. I didn't know what it starts with." And she goes, "Utter one more syllable and I'll have you killed." Right? Like, they have some great chemistry together.
Definitely.
So, all right. So we'll come back to casting, because at the end of this podcast, I want to talk about going forward, because we know Daniel Craig has one more Bond movie in him, and then he's done.
Yeah.
So we'll go forward with that, what we can expect. So let's do this. Best scene.
Yeah, I'll dive in on this one here. The one that stands out to me most is the stairwell fight scene in the hotel. So this is after some of Lashif's clients have confronted him in his hotel room. He kind of tries to cover up the fact that he's been investigating. He starts kissing Vesper. They see the earpiece that he's got in. And so there's a firefight that kind of ensues. Daniel Craig makes real quick work of the first guy. But then the second, they have this fight, and he's got really a machete that he's using, and they're fighting down the staircase. And it's a really intense action sequence that has always stood out to me. I love the fact that Bond, of course, as we mentioned earlier, he does not come out of this unscathed. He is beat up pretty bad, as he should be when facing unarmed against someone wielding a machete. I like how he wraps his suit jacket around his arm to try and use it as somewhat of a shield to block against this machete. And then kind of, I think, sad foreshadowing, too, at the end when Vesper looks absolutely terrified as Bond strangles this man. Her demise at the end. Granted, she drowns, but it's still some
good call.
Sad foreshadowing of what's to come, I think, in a way, too.
Good call. Nate?
My favorite scene is the hardcore parkour.
Yeah.
That one really stood out because I don't remember a scene of something like that magnitude and that scale, jumping on all the cranes and the buildings and all the construction equipment. And by the way, during that scene, you can climb an I-beam like that one dude does in that movie.
Yeah, he scales that thing so quick.
Yeah, but not everybody can do it that fast.
I can't.
We'll put a video up of Nate trying.
Yeah. But no, it's an amazing scene. And there are a lot of comments that I was reading about why did they have to kill that guy off, because he was awesome.
No, I agree with you. And that's my favorite scene too. And agreed, I didn't know what parkour was until this. And to be fair, I really didn't understand parkour until the Office episode where they're going parkour, and then jumping around from the couch. Right. So great Office there, right? Episode. But one thing I really liked about that movie is the difference between Bond and the guy he's chasing. Yes. The guy he's chasing definitely jumps from piece to piece, jumps underneath the wall, slides around corners. Bond goes through the wall. Right, and I think that was a perfect image of who these two guys were. Thought that was really cool. This difference, but I agree with you.
Another point on those differences that you had mentioned is how Bond kind of thinks smarter, and the one example of that is that he tries not to work so hard when he hits the winch and flies up it instead of trying to climb up all those flights of stairs.
Yeah,
so just thinking in the moment in that time period.
I think, doesn't he also runs out of bullets where he throws the gun, he catches it and just chucks it right back at him?
Yeah, that is so great.
Really kind of a neat action sequence. And again, definitely, because there wasn't really, I thought to myself as I was, we were preparing for this, I know there's a slight car chase scene towards the end of the second part of the film, of the second film of this movie.
Are we in Act 2 or?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And he almost hits her.
Yeah,
and so he flies up, and that Aston Martin just goes rolling. Right. This was kind of the better part of a chase scene. I know they have the chase scene, I guess, too, kind of at the airport, right? But this was a legit chase scene, I think, that superseded any of the car chase scenes they had. And the fact that it's on foot was really kind of neat. Mm-hmm. Thought that was cool.
Definitely.
How about best quote? Did you guys have a best quote?
I had a worst quote.
Worst quote.
That really stuck in my mind. It just made me cringe every time I heard it. Is the conversation in Act 3 where Vesper and Bond are in that rehabilitation center or whatever. And Vesper sets Bond up with, I can't remember her quote exactly, but then Bond retorts with, "That's because you know what I can do with my little finger." And I can't, it's hard for me to even say it right now. But that's the most memorable quote, I'd say, that I walked away with.
Fair enough. Okay, yeah. I do. I chuckle at that scene each time as well. My favorite quote is probably from Vesper, actually, and it's when they're in the hotel lobby. I think it's when they first arrive at Casino Royale. They're getting checked in. Bond, once again, being a total jerk, abandons his cover and just says, "Yeah, you'll find the reservation under beach, but my name's James Bond." And he basically, he's just said and announced to everyone who he is. So anyway, fast forward just a little bit. Vesper's called the elevator, and she tells him to take the next one. There isn't enough room for me and your ego. That's
a good one. Yeah, so she has good ones. Yeah.
Jump in here. Who at MI6, the alias maker, is going, this is a good name, Arlington Beach. That's not going to draw any attention. He should have been fired.
I have no comment on that from the R&D department over here. I didn't have a best quote. That's the one thing I think about this movie. There's not really anything that's real quotable. I had some scenes I liked where he kind of had some quips he makes.
Yeah, sure.
I really like the one where he goes, that last hand killed me, but it shouldn't bother you unless I only worry if I start weeping blood.
Oh, yep.
Right? And that was a direct shot at Lashif and his tear duct issue he's got. I also really like the part where after the lady that's in the first act gets strangled and killed, and she's in that hammock on the beach, Judi Dench is talking to him, and she's like, "I would ask you to stay, unemotional, basically, stay out of the fray on this, but I don't think that's your problem." He's like, "Nope." And he's just nonchalantly like, "Nope, doesn't matter."
Yeah, he's very detached.
Yeah, and I thought that was really cool. Or right before they do the scene that Joe was talking about, they're in the car, and he's like, "Oh, Stephanie Broadchest."
Oh, yeah.
we're too madly in love. And she goes, "Yep, in separate bedrooms."
Yeah. My parents were strict Roman Catholics, so we got a separate suite.
Yeah, I hate when religion comes between us.
That's right. Yeah, it's a good scene, too. A lot of the best scenes, I think, really are between Bond and Vesper.
Yeah, I think that, I was thinking of, because I was thinking ahead to Olga Karolinko, I think it is, in the second, Quantum of Solace.
Yep, that's right.
I can't name the other two ladies in the Skyfall or Spectre, but I think that she has the best chemistry. I was even trying to think of going back to Pierce Brosnan movies, and I don't know. The only lady that sticks out for me in Pierce Brosnan is Halle Berry, but that's because she's the bigger name. And that's maybe a difference in these James Bond movies. Is that Eva Green, to me, is the biggest name that's been a James Bond woman in Daniel Craig's series. And so I know they usually have this idea of using these women that aren't as well known and I don't know if that's good or bad. I don't know if it could add more to the movie if like an Angelina Jolie was Bond woman. But I don't know. I just thought that they had the best chemistry, and I agree. And I think it's because she's more his equal.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't take his crap, and he kind of takes hers. You know, the idea that she sizes him up, gets him to tux, and the first time he tries to tux on in the bathroom, really cool because they play the Bond theme there.
Yeah. That's a cool scene.
How about gift or advice you would give to somebody in this film?
Yep, I'll take the lead on this one.
Go for it.
So you have an intelligence agency, right?
That is correct.
MI6, and they entrust, I don't know, $15 million to a woman who has had her boyfriend kidnapped, and they don't do a background check on this chick? Anyway, that's my...
Fair enough. I think they kind of try to explain that away. I don't disagree. I agree with you. That seems kind of silly because at the very end, when M talks about, paraphrasing here, but we keep our enemies close, sometimes we forget to like watch our friends. General gist, like in terms of next time we'll have to keep an eye on these people that we're supposedly trusting. Yeah.
No, definitely. This movie obviously has a sequel to it that no other Bond movie had. So, and I don't know if we'll ever cover Quantum of Solace. But there's things that kind of go into Quantum of Solace from this movie. But one of the things was Mr. White was technically a part of Spectre, or was supposed to be. They didn't really own the rights to Thunderball or something like that before the Spectre name yet, and so they didn't really make him a part of Spectre, but he was supposed to be a part of that organization. Because if you think about where we're starting, if he were a part of this organization, going all the way up to Spectre the movie, this entire thing has a one straight linear progression to get him to where we're at.
Exactly.
Right?
We've talked on previous episodes about world building, and that's exactly what they're doing in this movie.
Yeah.
That's why they have so many acts, as we keep making fun of. But
definitely agreed. Gift or advice? That's the thing. Beyond a golden gun,
give him the golden gun.
I would think. I don't know what I would give him besides maybe a nut cup, because that torture scene at the end of the movie,
brutal.
I've never seen anything like that. And even rewatching it, when he hits him the first time with the rope and he just kind of shivers and makes a small peep, I had to think, what is he doing to him? Like, I had to think to myself, what's he doing with the rope? And then he hits him again. I'm like, I see. Because I forget he cuts out the chair.
Yeah, he cuts out the bottom.
The bottom of the chair.
He's scratching an itch, according to Bond.
Yes. So that's what I would give Daniel Craig in this movie.
I would probably lean on the intelligence side of things to go along with what you're talking about, Nate, as well. It seems like they probably could have done some more thorough investigation before sending Bond out in the field, combined with the fact that they really do seem to hinge everything on Bond's success at a poker game. Which, obviously, aside from the cinematic quality that represents, they don't talk about many other contingency plans. Bond has a contingency plan. He's ready to kill Lashif after he loses his first $10 million before he buys back in.
CIA's Jeffrey Wright stops him.
But they don't know that the CIA is going to be there.
They don't?
So he's really got a 1 in 10 chance of winning this poker game. And so does Lashif. So I don't know. It is a very weird premise.
To be fair, on the intelligence, they also did not know going into Quantum of Solace that Judi Dench, M's personal bodyguard, was also a part of Spectre and had been her bodyguard for 15 years, I think they said, and just tries to kill her like that. Like, it just flipped a switch all of a sudden and he was reprogrammed. Right. Again, you're right. MI6 has a lot.
Yeah, and I get we're supposed to suspend disbelief to obviously watch the movie and enjoy it, but there are a couple of those things that stand out. It's I think with just a little more research, we might have been able to tackle these things differently.
How about most cowboyish scene?
Mine was the embassy scene.
He just walks in and tears it inside out.
He kind of adapts his plan because you hear him call out to his other guy in the snake versus mongoose fight, and he says, "Hey, I need him alive. Holster your weapon." And then the circumstances change, and he turns him over, shoots him outright, and blows up the embassy. I also like the part where he punches, I'm assuming it's some sort of ambassador or high-up dude right in the face.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, he does. He clocks right in the face, doesn't he? Yeah,
that's my favorite cowboy scene.
Nice. I actually had the same one. So not much to add there. That is also one of my favorite scenes, and specifically through the cowboyish lens, the fact that he quick draws to kill the bomb maker as well. His kind of cavalier attitude toward the whole thing. Yes, so that's my choice.
I will go ahead and say that I will give you a different one because it's not as cowboyish as far as like the violence is going to supersede. But this was just such a cocky thing he did. When he pulls up into the... I'm trying to think of where they're at when he's trying to play it. Like, when he's trying to find after he finds the bomb maker, he goes to...
Nassau. Jamaica.
Was it Jamaica?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's in Jamaica.
Is that the hotel?
Yes,
first goes to? Yeah.
And he
gets confused
he gets confused for the valet. He goes, "Were you going to park my car?" He goes, "Yep, right away, sir." And he just takes it, drives it, backs it right into a stack of cars, gets out, throws the keys away, and just like continues to walk into the hotel. Good. Or the fact that lady gets in the car, she goes, "Do you live far?" He goes, "Not far." Just goes around the roundabout and stops. I mean, that was perfect, right? Not really cowboyish, but...
well, there's something... Yeah, when I think of those cowboyish scenes, it's some manner of swagger and attitude that also contributes to it. Yeah. So I agree.
It's very, very suave.
Yeah, right. Very much so.
Just really, really good. How about what doesn't age well?
I think... go ahead, Nate.
Oh, I was going to make one comment. Because of the poker theme, the Texas Hold'em poker theme... I looked this up. So Chris Moneymaker, if you remember him, World Series of Poker 2003 was this out of nowhere winner, right?
He's like the first internet poker player.
Yeah, essentially a no-name winner in this major super tournament, right? In 2006, this movie is released. I think the thing that wouldn't age well is if you try to recreate this before or after that time period. It just wouldn't take as well with a lot of the individuals that weren't brought into that World Series of Poker.
Okay. That's a good one to bring up. I thought just maybe this one's obvious, but Bond's entire mindset, the misogyny that's present, obviously with how he goes about doing things.
R&D's rolling his eyes again.
Well, I think to readdress the point that Vesper's there to kind of obviously call him out on this as well. So that certainly helps things out too. But on a rewatch, it was impossible to not think of that either. So
there's a statistic that I found about how many people Bond has courted in the movies too.
Yeah,
that's a PC way to say that.
55 of the most beautiful women on Earth.
Okay,
not bad.
Quite a statistic.
Quality and quantity.
Quality and quantity. How about cell phones?
Cell phones, yeah.
The cell phone usage and the text messaging just doesn't really age well, in my opinion. I thought that this was, well, I didn't like the fact that when he goes shaken or stirred and goes, "I don't give a damn."
Oh, yeah.
I didn't like that because Bond cares.
Bond does care about that.
Bond cares about that.
Cares about
so
that.
So I think that aged well for the character, at least for this rebooted character. I understand there's a lot of misogyny, but that's kind of his character.
Right, I understand that.
And going forward, I think it's going to continue to be his character, at least until they replace Daniel Craig. I think who knows what the next James Bond will come to. How about the idea that the poker game? Does the poker game in general age well for a Bond film?
I still like it as a plot. While part of it doesn't make sense, kind of like we talked about. I mean, you're hedging your literal bets, pardon the pun, but you're hedging your bets on winning a poker game so that you don't directly finance terrorism. You should probably have a plan B to that. But it still makes, I think, for some cool tension that they build between Lashif and Bond, specifically, of course, but I found it entertaining. And I think that would still hold up regardless of when you decide to make that into the premise for the plot.
Okay. Nate?
My only comment, and if I used to have like little itty-bitty 5-man poker tournaments with friends and stuff, but you never push all of your chips right in the middle of the pot and splash the pot. That kills me a little bit on the inside when someone just shoves all their... Because then you got to go out and count it and stack it all over again. So I know that's going to hit home with some people who have played poker before.
That's assuming you win.
Yeah, that's true. Otherwise, I don't have to do any of that.
Yeah. Who wins the movie?
Bond. James Bond.
I think so, too.
Far and away.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Daniel Craig wins it. Clearly, he's become, I think, a lot of people's favorite James Bond.
He's proved the critics wrong.
Yes, he's definitely proved the critics wrong.
Definitely.
What about, was it Mads Mikkelsen?
Yes.
As a villain.
As a villain. I think he's a very successful villain in it. I would still put, in terms of who wins the movie as the category, totally agree that Bond takes that, and Daniel Craig's portrayal of Bond more specifically. But Mads Mikkelsen would come in a close second, I think.
Okay.
Because he's menacing, and we mentioned this actually in our last episode a little bit, because he was an honorable mention for our villain list as well. But it's more the unassuming villain. He doesn't have this huge plot to take over the world with a super weapon or something like that. Obviously, he's financing terrorism, which is awful. He's a private banker to terrorists. But he's still a little bit more unassuming. He's not quite over the top. He's more insidious in how he behaves because he's very subdued.
Okay.
He's an accountant.
Yeah,
I took away from it.
Yeah,
he's doing the wrong things with the money, but he's an accountant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Going back to what doesn't age well, how about the idea that in all these James Bond movies, really, except for I can think of maybe GoldenEye, we don't meet any other double O's. Do you think it's time that we realize that there is a bigger world building out there? That it's not just they didn't just go from 000 to 007, that there are other people that are supposed to have code names? And the idea of, would you guys want to see a different or a other 00 agent interact with Bond?
Absolutely, I would. And I think maybe they ruined their opportunity when they brought in Spectre, because I think that would have been like an all-out war to have all these 00 agents versus all these Spectre agents who you don't really know who they are, but just going at it. That would have been an awesome opportunity to bring the full fold of the force of the MI6.
Oh, that's a great idea, man. I want to watch that movie now. Like, somebody make that into a thing, because I would definitely want to watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I agree. I think it's time we definitely saw some other 00 agents.
Yeah, I just want to see some interaction. I mean, obviously we get Moneypenny and we have M.
Yep.
And to be fair, I think it's in Skyfall that Javier Bardem was an agent at some point.
He was, I believe.
We don't really know his full extent of what his 00 status was, if he was 00 or not. I have to go back and watch that movie. But we do know that he was at least M adjacent and had somehow been affiliated with her, and that he at one time was her favorite agent. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, he brings that up too.
Which is kind of great. So let's talk about, before we get into the reboot or sequel, because obviously we know that we're going to get one more sequel with Daniel Craig, and then they're going to reboot it. So we're not going to debate if we should have a reboot or sequel. What I want to ask is the idea of comparing this as Daniel Craig's Bond to Jason Bourne.
Okay.
So a lot of people would argue that this is not a Bond movie. This is just Bond. This is just a Jason Bourne movie disguised as a Bond movie. Whether it's the action, the fighting, the aggressiveness, the darkness, there's a lack of gadgetry that generally goes with the Bond movie. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, the gadgetry trips me up too, because it's got this sweet car and it's got like a little side compartment and it shoots out like an AED and a PP7. And that's it. I don't know. It's kind of cool because it is in the theme and the realm of like a very grounding James Bond too, right? But it is kind of weird that you'd spend so much money to shoot out two different shells, one with an AED and one with a gun. But
Okay. Go ahead, Nate. I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I think the fact that they tried to ground this version of Bond to be a little bit more realistic, that all makes sense. The lack of gadgets. Also, to my point earlier, where I felt they started to try to outdo themselves too much. There's some really silly gadgets, which I know is part of the charm, some people would argue. But I really liked the fact that Daniel Craig did still bring 007, the Agency, M, all these other very iconic Bond things to a more realistic and believable and a little bit darker interpretation. So I still think they stand apart from one another. I wouldn't say that it's too much like a Jason Bourne movie.
Okay.
I think they're different enough that they're telling their own stories.
Okay. So Bourne Identity comes out 2002. Batman Begins comes out 2005. Casino Royale 2006. Obviously, we have this darkness that comes with these, and I know Bourne's not really dark, but it definitely is kind of a darker espionage thriller that had come prior in the 90s, right? Batman Begins is definitely a darker iteration of Batman.
Yep.
And the origin story that he gets. Does this have anything to do with their implication of 9/11 in this film? Did they bring up 9/11 a lot? Like post 9/11, people made money on the stock market, betting with jets and stuff like that. Just this idea of movies, the difference between the Bond movies in the 90s and the difference between the Bond movies now?
I don't know that it necessarily has to do with 9/11 so much, but I think you see that theme throughout all movies after that, where there's dark and brooding and it's more realistic and grounding. Set aside the Marvel stuff, but everything seems to be a little bit more realistic to where you can take a hold of it and maybe put yourself in their shoes a little bit more.
Well, dark and brooding, but I mean, at the time these movies are being made, this isn't to get political, but we're in wars. There's some financial depression a little bit, or at least recession. Is it that these movies are the time that they're in, right? I mean, obviously with Christian Bale, it's 2005, sorry, Bourne Identity is 2002. So let's just stick with Batman and Casino Royale, the two kind of more in-depth reboots of some really popular franchises with some history. Yeah. The idea to make them darker based on the time period in which they're made.
I think that can definitely have a part of it. I remember seeing these movies in high school and kind of, I don't want to say an ongoing joke, but the commentary was, well, what's going to get the dark and gritty reboot next? Like, it seemed that everything was coming back to the big screen as a dark and gritty reinterpretation of what it used to be.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think there's absolutely that going along with it. From a franchise perspective, you mentioned, Nate, that's essentially what they're doing. They're world building in a way. Seeing success of other dark and gritty movies, they're probably, yes, as a showrunner, director, going to lean into that a little bit more.
I mean, it is popular because Hellboy's getting its own reboot,
yep.
right? X-Men,
it's supposed to be grittier.
Yeah, very
you
much
can make
so.
the argument that the X-Men's now are different than the X-Men that Bryan Singer did, I think like in 2002 or something.
Yep.
Where where Hugh Jackman first played Wolverine.
Yeah.
Obviously, Logan was very dark.
Very dark.
You can make the argument that this Lord of the Rings coming out with Amazon will probably be darker than the trilogy. And that's probably also driven by, say, like Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And how dark that can be.
They see the success of that. They're trying to mirror it.
Maybe another note that just came to mind is Deadpool being rated R, Logan being rated R. They're not trying to hit maybe these target niche audiences, or trying to get for a larger demographic where they go, okay, if we can get PG-13, we're going to pull in a lot more money. And they, I guess the movie producers risk it, and they go for the R rating. And that's where we get our dark and brooding from,
Okay.
too.
No, I agree. Let me ask you this, because this is a kind of sometimes a pet debate I like to have, pet project. Jason Bourne or James Bond? This James Bond versus Jason Bourne, who wins in a fight?
I'm gonna pick James Bond.
I'm going to take Jason Bourne.
I got to take Jason Bourne, too. I think that Jason Bourne, is the ultimate, how should I say, action hero? Spy? I just can't, the way they built Matt Damon's character, I can't see anybody outdoing him. I don't know. I just like to have the debate. I think this James Bond is definitely aggressive and thinking enough. I think his hand-to-hand combat, though, he'd get beat. And I think that's what it would come down to.
Okay, fair enough.
You agree, Nate?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, sorry, just side
It's hard
I like
to
to have
argue
that
against
conversation.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one to put out there. Yeah.
Okay, so let's move in here to reboot or sequel. What are we hoping to get in the next movie? Because actually, bringing up 006 potentially, I would love to see them introduce a Trevelyan into this one. You don't have to turn him into a villain.
Right, you don't
You
have to
can
do
make him
that.
an ally. What about Valentine? Right, the Robbie who played Hagrid in Harry Potter, right? He was always like this Russian sidekick that just happened to be around. I'd like to see them broaden that Bond universe, and not just him and Moneypenny. I want to see other characters. The Felix is there, but he's not really there. I want to see other Bond people come in, and that's where I kind of like that. Pierce Brosnan kind of had that relationship in his movies with Robbie. I think it's Robbie Coltrane. I think is the actor's name. I'd like to see Valentine come in, as well as Trevelyan would be great to introduce.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, I'm kind of drawing a blank on Skyfall. I'm going to have to go back.
Spectre. Spectre was the last one.
Spectre.
Yeah, agreed. And Spectre, we were talking about this too. We think the Casino Royale and Skyfall are really good.
Yeah.
Quantum of Solace and Spectre weren't as good. Spectre definitely wasn't as memorable as I remember it, wanting it to be.
Yeah, I remember being really hyped because I'm coming off of Skyfall there. I was really excited for Spectre, and then it was a bit of a slow burn, which is fine. I guess I was expecting something a little bit different.
Well, what's it? Christopher Waltz is the villain, he was coming off of *Inglourious Bastards*. So
That's right.
He was supposed to, and I think Django too. He was supposed to be really like menacing. Again, not as good as Skyfall. Skyfall was definitely better. Okay, so if we get a sequel, then we're going to get a new James Bond. So before we talk about who we want to cast as James Bond, do you want what are you looking for in the next series of James Bond movies? Are you looking as a continuation of this particular character? Do you want them to do an older James Bond that maybe he's taking a different route, not make him, not try to do like they did, and just continuation of like Sean Connery, Lazenby, Dalton, Roger Moore, up to Pierce Brosnan? Because there's a lot of novels, right?
Yeah,
Fleming wrote an entire series of James Bond movies. Do we want him to go through that? Just remake all the movies, or do we want him to go a different route with it?
I vote a different route.
Okay.
I say certainly pull from those books from the source material as inspiration, but I also think we have reached a point where there are so many of these movies, many of which have kind of pulled bits and pieces from plot points from these books. Don't be afraid. At this juncture, if this is a complete reboot we're talking about, let Daniel Craig's series stand on its own, start over, make it something that is unique into its own universe. Try something that hasn't been done before.
So do you want them to reboot it again, that he's getting 00 status again?
No. I want them to do it a little bit older, so where he'd be a little bit older already. He'd already have his 007 status, will have had it for a little while yet. He's a more seasoned agent, and just to go back to what Nate said earlier too, I'd really love to see them introduce other 00 agents, just like you were saying, Garrett, as well. If they want to still even keep some of the names that have appeared both in books as well as the movie interpretations, perfect. Go ahead and do it, but try to put your own spin to it. I think Bond has earned the right to just try their own thing, try something new. There are so many movies out there. That's what's fun about passing the torch and trying something different out.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and I agree with you that they need to do something different. I almost think that maybe they should let Daniel Craig go off, let him finish it strong, and then next series bring in people like Oddjob, bring in Jaws, bring in Mayday.
There you go.
Bring in the villains that you want to see.
Yeah.
And then bring in those characters from the expanded universe of Bond and make those guys central to the next series.
Yeah.
How about, like I said, so would you want to see an older Bond? Like an older man maybe trying to hold on to it? Because obviously you kind of get that.
Oh, I got you.
You kind of get that in Skyfall a little bit, because that's more if he's almost, obviously to Nate it wasn't a serious injury. He almost died. Okay. But no big deal.
It's a flesh wound.
Yeah, exactly. Do you want to see it like, I don't know, trying to, because like in Batman, what is it? What's the third Batman?
Dark Knight Rises.
Dark Knight Rises. He's clearly beat up. He doesn't have cartilage in his knees. He can't really move very fast. He just gets worked by Bane. Do you want to see that kind of Bond trying to hold on to it, or do you want to see just like still prime Bond?
I want to see prime Bond because of what Bond exemplifies is a man's man or a woman's man that women love, right? And men envy. He's young in his prime. He's capable. I don't want to see an aging Bond that can't quite do what he used to be able to do and isn't quite maybe confident in what he could do. No, that's not the character 007.
Okay. Let me ask this.
Sure.
The rumors of the next James Bond, the front runner, I think he turned it down because he's probably older than he should be now, is Idris Elba. Obviously, the controversy around that is specifically because Idris Elba is not his age. Idris Elba, if you don't know, is a black man. And people were, obviously, Bond purists were saying, no, this character is defined in the novels. Tall, dark, handsome, but he's white. Not Idris Elba. Okay? They didn't want a black James Bond. Where do you guys sit on our controversy or not? Do you want a James Bond that is going to be true to the physical characteristics? Or is just the idea of his character as far as being the womanizer, being suave, that is more important than what he looks like?
That's more important than what he looks like. Idris Elba is my choice still to play Bond. I know I also read that story where I think he did officially turn it down. He's addressing the rumors of that casting decision. I don't I don't know if he was even ever officially offered any. I don't think he was. But still, in terms of my favorite choice for casting, Idris Elba all the way. And I think it's more important for whomever they choose to be able to embody the characteristics of Bond. Who cares about staying true to how he looks in the book? I think we're past that point.
Okay.
We can move past that point. Idris Elba would be a great choice for the physicality involved. I don't think he's too old. I think they can still do a lot to show a Bond in his prime. Obviously, sure, he's not like mid-20s or early 30s necessarily, if that's the age range that they're going for. But Idris Elba would have the charisma, the physicality required to do it, the acting presence. I think he has absolutely everything that would be needed to make a fantastic Bond. And he would have been my pick for the next Bond.
Yeah, you took all my points, Joe.
Oh, sorry.
No, I agree with you on all that.
Anything else from R&D department?
No, I really truly agree. It's about the presence, the aura that actor brings to the character.
Okay. How about who would you want to see as the next Bond girl?
We have any ideas?
We had this discussion before about how do you choose young actors because they aren't known quite as well.
Well, I thought one lady that is well known, I thought would be a great screen presence to go against a James Bond. Now, I don't know if it could be Idris Elba because there is an age difference that would be significant.
Can I guess?
Yeah.
Is it Emma Watson?
No. Okay. She can do anything she wants. Jennifer Lawrence. I thought Jennifer Lawrence could play a good Bond woman, and I thought she would be strong enough screen presence to be like an evergreen character to put Bond in this place. Okay, I think that she would be. I don't know. I just feel like there would be something there.
I think she'd have to have such a large role to be like almost like a Xena in a 007 GoldenEye.
Sure,
but to have much more screen time if she's going to take a role like that.
No, I agree, and I'm not denying that she would take this or not. I'm just saying I think she would play a really good Bond character. How about the idea of? Oh, go ahead, Joe.
No, I was just going to say I drew a blank on her name. I apologize. So I was trying to look it up. But Dominique McGilliot. I'm not sure if you guys recognize the name. She had a great role on Hell on Wheels, playing one of the primary characters in the first couple seasons. But if you're unfamiliar with the show or with her as an actress, highly recommend you go.
Are there any movies that she's in?
I think The Last Tycoon, in terms of a show that might be a bit more high profile than Hell on Wheels.
The Last Tycoon with Kelsey Grammer?
Was Kelsey Grammer in the last?
Maybe.
The guy I'm thinking of is with Matt Bomar.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I believe she's in that show I want to say she's a fairly prominent character in that show. I haven't seen The Astronaut Wives Club. I know she's in that as well.
Nate's watched
it.
I don't think I can take credit for that one.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, let me ask you this. So we've talked about Bond being played by Idris Elba. Would we care if Bond was a woman? So here's kind of my viewpoint on Bond. Okay, so hold that. Is Bond... Should we get to the point where we acknowledge 007 is not the character, but just simply the title or like the alias of whoever's taking that mantle? Because that's a way to explain away all the James Bonds, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of like, I'm trying to think of what was the movie. It was, I think the movie was The A-Team. At the end, that the guy, every CIA agent they meet is named Mr. Smith, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever it is. He's like, oh, I met a Mr. Smith once. He was a jerk. He goes, oh, what's your name? He's like, Mr. Smith, you know? The idea that James Bond maybe is not the title, but 007 is just simply an alias to whoever's holding that identity.
Absolutely. I don't have any problem with a woman being a 00 agent, but if you're talking 007 James Bond, that's James Bond. But to have a 00 agent being a woman, no problem at all.
So Jamie Bond is out.
Jamie Bond 007 is out.
Okay. All right. Joe?
I would be okay with it.
Can you think of any women you think would want to be that would be a good female James Bond?
Honestly, and it's primarily because of her role in Atomic Blonde. But you're nodding along.
Charlize Theron. She was great.
Yeah. So that comes immediately to mind. But yeah, like I was saying earlier, we've hit a point I think with Bond films that we should start exploring other ways to bring this character to the screen. So I would be 100% okay with that. I think it'd be an interesting way to spin things and try something new.
If I could jump back in time right now, I would say Mrs. Poppins herself, Emily Blunt, because I really liked her performance in is it Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise?
She was really good in Sicario,
I thought she was
too.
Really
the first Sicario.
First Sicario, yeah.
So, okay, I'm going to take that back. Emily Blunt.
Yeah, he's not misogynistic, ladies. Okay, if your wife listens to this,
Nada.
you're going to get yelled at. Okay, so we always do reboot or sequel. How about this, though? So we like to, in our discussions, talk about a broader universe.
Yeah.
There is a universe here to build on MI6 00 agents. Do you think that they could expand this? I don't know if it's like a TV show thing, because we have these debates, obviously, in our episodes here. Could we build a 007 series around a character that's not James Bond? That can we do a 001, a 003, 009, whatever it is? Or as Eddie Murphy said one time, 009 and a half. Do you think that they could do a broader world, like build this world?
Yeah, I think obviously disregarding any legalities with copyrights or whatever.
Of course.
But yeah, I think you could do a full season where you're tracking down one of the main villains, right? And along the way, you meet in with some other 00 agents. There's some betrayals along the way. I think it would fit very well with the TV show.
Yeah, I think so too. That'd be really cool. And especially with, you mentioned bringing back Jaws, for example, bringing back Oddjob, bringing back these iconic Bond villains. I find it interesting that they didn't really do those roles in the Daniel Craig versions. And once again, I think they're trying to do a more grounded approach to it. These characters are almost reminding me of comic book villains, which what better time to hop onto that bandwagon if you're writing a new movie or a new show. Those characters are larger than life. It wouldn't work in Daniel Craig's Bond universe, I don't think, but in a new rebooted series or an ongoing TV series of some kind, having these very large presence iconic villains in there, I think it worked great. I'd watch it.
Okay. Two people I thought that could maybe play the next Bond.
Nice.
Henry Cavill.
Good choice.
He is tall, dark, handsome. He might be a little too big, like muscular.
Yeah, true.
He was excellent in the last Mission Impossible movie.
Oh, yeah.
Which we didn't even throw Ethan Hunt into the discussion between Bourne versus Bond.
Oh, yeah.
But he would be really good. And I don't know you'll know the guy's name, Joe. Rob Stark.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm blanking on it right now.
Yeah, Rob Stark's
But
character, or the actor who plays Rob Stark, I think could play a young Bond in his prime. And then I think you could easily put a Jennifer Lawrence up against him as an equal for a Bond woman.
Okay, that'd be cool. I like that pairing. I hadn't thought about those two specifically together.
And I think he's
this ignorant. Did he not play Trevelyan?
No, you're
Am I
thinking...
confusing with somebody else?
Oh, yeah.
Ned Stark. Ned Stark played Trevelyan.
Yep,
Yes,
you're thinking of Sean
okay,
Bean.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But still, cool connection there, in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Adjacent. His son, Nate. Okay. Okay. Do you guys have anything else to add?
Not really.
Hey,
You got
R&D?
I'm just gonna run. Yeah, I'm gonna run through my list here quick.
Go ahead.
Do you know the probability of getting a straight flush in a hand of Texas Hold'em?
I do not know.
Never had
Hit me
one.
with some knowledge here,
It's not.
Nate.
It's not high. It's not high.
I believe it.
0.0279%.
Repeating.
Yeah, no. Also, one of the criticisms I found is you have this, I'm assuming, a Swiss bank account in the briefcase. The guy asked for a 6-letter password or a 6-character password. You can't even log into your computer with a 6-letter password now. You got to have one capital letter, one lowercase letter, a symbol, 8 characters minimum. Can't repeat your last 10 passwords.
Yes.
And they're entrusting that 6-letter password with like $150 million.
That's
Also
a
had-
great point.
I also had a how to pick up chicks. Use their name as your password. Trick them into entering it for you. Fall in love. 3-step process, gentlemen. What else? James Bond is actually the author of a Birds of the West Indies novel, which Ian Fleming took from that. He was also an ornithologist like the James Bond author.
Yeah, he's based off a real character.
Yeah.
Like a real person. What else you got, R&D?
Who likes caviar? I can't name a single person that actually likes caviar and
never
ends up
had
in all
caviar.
these movies.
I'm not
I haven't
anxious
tried
to
it.
try it. It just
Yeah.
doesn't appeal to me.
Me
But,
neither.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm out.
So, one last thing. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say Richard Madden is who we were trying to think of as the actor. And yes, to your point, he is in the Netflix series The Bodyguard.
Yes.
Which I have not watched it yet, but it looks amazing. And based on previews that I've seen for that, it's very Bond-esque,
Yeah,
let's say, for that type of role.
And I think he's English. I think that would be important is to keep an English person for the accent. One last thing I was going to say, because I found this kind of researching when I was kind of just trying to find out some random stuff about this film. Tarantino wanted to direct this film, but only would direct this film if Pierce Brosnan starred in it.
Interesting.
I would think it would be interesting. So someday we'll tackle Joe's viewpoints on the new Star Wars movies, which he's got a lot of opinions on. What if you were to do the next Bond? So not finish Daniel Craig out, let Daniel Craig finish out.
Okay.
The next Bond is simply a trilogy. And you just do trilogies now. You get one director to commit for 3 films. So you get an arc all the way through all 3 movies. Switch James Bond out every 3 movies. Okay? Let Tarantino do a trilogy.
That's an interesting thought. First of all, to address your point of keeping the same director throughout your trilogy, yes, please do it. I agree with
Sorry,
you.
Mr. Johnson.
You're
You're not as good as J.J. Abrams.
That's a great point to bring up. I also do like the fact, regardless of who is directing those movies, I was arguing for the point of just trying new things out. So yeah, I think having those trilogies, letting directors who might not be the obvious pick to direct those films, that could be really cool.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, it would be extremely bloody.
Yeah.
And the language would be off the charts. So I don't know if, unless he's going to tone it down, the dialogue would be superb throughout this film.
True.
Right? And it would be different action, because I can't picture him doing a high-speed chase scene. I don't think he's ever done something like that. But I think the action would be really interesting. I think it would be a lot more grounded. Like, he would almost be perfect for, like, Casino Royale to have directed it with Daniel Craig. Yeah. He would have said a lot of things that you probably would have been like, that doesn't sound like Bond would say that.
Has he ever done something that wasn't his own screenplay? I mean, as far as not an original series?
I have to look up his filmography.
I'm trying to think.
I know he's written for other directors. I don't know if he's ever directed something he didn't write.
Okay.
Or at least co-wrote.
Okay.
But it would be interesting.
Question,
I think that would be great, and that would be a really interesting way to take James Bond.
Well, isn't he also rumored, now this might have since been proven false for all I know, but wasn't he rumored to be trying to direct a Star Trek movie of some kind? I don't want to derail our Bond topic here too much, but I want to say Tarantino was trying to get on board to direct a Star Trek movie.
To be fair, I don't care what Tarantino's doing, but he better do Kill Bill 3.
Yes.
I don't want to see another movie he does till it's done. But, you know what? He could do the next James Bond and bring in Walton Goggins as the villain.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Walton Goggins is one of my personal favorites. If we ever do TV villains, he's number 1.
Nice.
But Walton Goggins, he's Hateful Eight. He was in that. He's just really good. He was the villain in the new Tomb Raider movie. He's just a really good, awesome villain, and he would be a great villain against James Bond. But
good choice.
Anyways, I think that's all we have. Nothing else to offer tonight.
No, sir.
Well, so we wanted to hear, guys. As always, we really love your listener feedback. We want to keep hearing more. Please go out to iTunes, hit the subscribe button. We really like you guys to subscribe. We like the idea that you guys like what we're doing. Like I said, you can get us on Twitter at Alien and Cowboy. Email us comments, concerns, questions at aliensandcowboys@gmail.com. Joe did put up a Facebook page.
Yes.
Aliens and Cowboys Podcast on Facebook.
Correct. It's up and running, so check that out, please.
Joe's going to put our episodes out there. Joe's going to try to put some interactive stuff, maybe some polls out there, let you guys kind of guide where we maybe go in the future with some of the episodes you guys want us to do. We don't really know ahead of time what we're going to do next week. We might, I don't know, Nate's wanting to tackle Prometheus at some point.
That'd be a good one.
We have some people that want to tackle some other movies as well, so we'll see what we're doing.
We'd also enjoy suggestions. What do you guys want to hear?
If you guys want us to dive into a topic, let us know. Other than that, we'll be back with you guys next week. Until then, cheers.
Cheers.